my professional title is music composer for video games, which really encompasses two arenas. Either I'm custom scoring video games, and that's where a game developer or a team will come to me and they'll hire me for a set period of time. It's usually towards the end of a project. And that's generally, in some extreme cases, it could be as short as 3 months of work, or it could be as long as a year, 3 years, 7 years. It's all over the place. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm providing background music for that game. And that's a custom score from scratch, blank canvas kind of deal. On the other side, I create music, and I create what are called music packs. So they're video game music packs. And this is actually a new thing. This is a new marketplace. So in the last few years, there are some stores like Unity Asset Store, Unreal Marketplace, itch.io, and Game Dev Market. These are 4 different websites that you can actually provide music to. It's very similar to the old school way of providing music for licensing, things like TV shows and films and that kind of thing. But the best part about that is I can make those music tracks whenever I want to, and I stockpile them together and I sell them like a traditional product. And so that way, when I'm not custom writing for music, because even the best composers in the world are not hired all the time. There are usually these little pockets of time, 1, 2, 3 months of time where you're not hired and you're in between negotiating contracts and finishing up old contracts. And there's these little pockets of time that's really nice to have some other source of income to help you make a living. And I'm a big believer in passive income and creating products, whether that's education products or that's royalties, whether that's selling books, whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I see with so much talent in the room with you guys, chances are many of you have a lot of opportunities in the music field that you haven't even explored yet. Because some of you play an instrument, but maybe you've never considered recording your instrument for somebody else. You ever thought about that? The other side is you could create sheet music for other people. You could arrange. You could orchestrate. Of course, many of you want to actually write music. That's awesome. But again, no one of these jobs is really a career all in itself unless you are at the absolute top of the top and you're Hans Zimmer's orchestrator, that kind of thing, and you're doing that all the time. So for the average person, which is all of us, we're not that person. So you need to start thinking about what are some ways that you could have multiple streams of income. Because I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of A-list composers, orchestrators, etc. And even the top of the top, I talk to these people every day, and they have multiple streams of income. And it's just the way it is in 2022 and beyond. If you're going to become a professional musician, you need to have multiple ways of making a living. And generally, that is some kind of combo of teaching or selling products and writing music or playing music. And so it's really good, especially in a school setting, to start working on multiple skill sets. That way, when you get to the professional side of things, you can monetize in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of my professional title, but I've done a lot of things in the music industry. But the thing is, I had to start by doing a lot of things. I call it the shotgun approach. When I started fresh out of school, I went and got a master's. And so I was in school for a long time. And right after school, I had all these skill sets, but I didn't really know how to make money doing it. And so I just tried a lot of things. I tried some teaching, some orchestration, some arranging, some writing, some songwriting, some producing. I just did a lot of things. And I ended up literally having about 20 little jobs all at once. And so in doing that, I started year after year whittling them down. And instead of having 20, I went to 15, then 10, then 5, then 3, then 2. And so now it's just those 2 things that I do for the most part. And that's 90% of my schedule. And so we can go anywhere into these questions as you wish, but I just want to kind of give you a brief background. And I hope that the resources that I sought you, if you want to listen to any of my interviews or anything, others have certainly picked apart my history and my past and my career, but I really want to use this time to help you guys with your specific questions.
So music and kind of a lot of creative industries have the tendency of being very connection based, and if you have the right connections. And so how would you recommend going about making the right connections and kind of what gets people's attention and what gets your name out there?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question because you are absolutely right. All creative fields, and I would kind of say business in general, is all about connections. It's all about personal relationships. That's how the world runs. It's all about getting hired by your friend or their friend, and that's just how it is. And specifically in the music industry, and I'll even specify in the composing industry, jobs are always hired by friends. And I make this joke all the time, but if you're not in my phone, I'm not going to hire you, period. It's just that simple, because if I have a job right now, if I have a client who calls me today and says, hey, I need this by tomorrow or in 2 days, my brain is instantly thinking of how to solve the problem. And usually when I'm hired, it's a multiple step process. So it's, hey, I need 5 minutes of music in 2 days. Okay, so my brain is going, I need to compose the music, I need to orchestrate the music, I need to produce the music. If there's live musicians, there's sheet music involved, there's the recording of the musicians, and then there's the mixing and the mastering. So that's about 7 steps that have to be done in 2 days. So the only way that's possible is if I do it all myself, which is almost impossible, or I have a short list of people that I know I'm going to call. So who are those people? Well, they're my friends that I've done this with before. So I have an orchestrator, an arranger, a producer, a mixer. I have a person, and just line them all up, and they all talk to each other, and we get the job done. And that is definitely more the case now that I've actually started to build a team, both in-house in the studio and remotely. I work with several people around the world, and it has definitely opened up more speed, but that is not how everyone starts. When I started, I did everything myself, and I would hire out as I could. But that is the nature of the music industry, is it's all about hiring your friends. And so if that person's not in my phone, then what am I doing? I don't have time. If I have a 2-day deadline, I don't have time to go meet new people and vet them and make sure that they can do what they say and all that kind of stuff. But I will say, as a caveat, if someone's not in my phone and I need something, for example, the other day I needed someone, this is not even music related, but I needed someone to translate Japanese as a voiceover for a client. And I knew the person because I know a guy who speaks fluent Japanese. And so he was a friend, and I could so easily just reach out. He was in my friend circle, let's put it that way. And he got the job, and now he'll probably get more jobs like that as they arise. But also, there have been so many times where I needed a specific instrument to be recorded, and I don't know who plays shakuhachi flute or whatever. And so I can go to my friend circle, people I trust, and say, hey, other composers and producers, who would you record? Who do you recommend? That's one of the most common questions I ask. Who do you recommend for blank? Because now I'm carrying that person's trust, and now I'm bringing them on board, and they just entered my circle. So that is how jobs happen. Jobs have almost nothing to do with your skill. They have everything to do with, are you friends or are they a recommendation of a friend? And this is why you probably have heard the word networking a lot in the music industry, because I think that's a very sterile word. I don't love networking as an activity. I think it's just a way of life. You should always be building relationships. And in fact, I would dare say that all the people sitting in the room with you right now, that's your network. It's a natural network. It's the people that you know and the people that they know. And so often we try to look outside our 4 walls and we're thinking, oh, if I can just know that person, then I'm going to make the career. It's not true. The people you know right now that are your friends, those are the people you'll be working with. And then you'll be working with their friends. And that's why careers take a little while. They usually take 3 to 5 years to really start. And then once you get that traction, once you get the 10-year mark, things start really snowballing because your friends from 10 years ago are now making big projects, and it just kind of goes from there. So I hope that's helpful in some way. It really has almost nothing to do with what you project out to the world. It has everything to do with who you are as a person and your closest friends. That's how you're going to get work.
So, why did you think to upload some of your videos to YouTube?
Sure. I mean, I'm a big fan of YouTube in particular. It sounds like you guys have seen some of my YouTube content. YouTube it's very helpful. It is a tool. And at the end of the day, if you use the tool it'll help you. If you don't use the tool, what's the point, right? And that's the same thing with social media. There is no one tool that solves all the problems, but as long as you understand what the tool is for, you can use it to your advantage. So YouTube is actually, may not seem like it, but it's actually a community building platform. It is commonly not referred to as a social media platform because it's not so much about consuming content as it is about finding like-minded people, aka a community. It functions a lot like Discord or Slack, actually, in that you, the creator, are putting out content to the world for the purpose of drawing people into your inner circle. And this is what we were just talking about, right? Building your inner circle. And they become some of your go-to people. I've actually hired a lot of people and I've made a lot of friends online. And in 2022 and beyond, this is the time where a lot of my clients I've never met face to face, which is weird to say. But we've met on YouTube, we've met on Discord, we've met on Facebook and whatever. Like, we've met in these social platforms. We get to know each other. And of course, the best clients are the ones you can call on the phone. I think that is still true. And you can have video chats with. And of course, that naturally happens eventually. But meeting people for the first time, there's something very powerful about putting your content out and drawing people in. And I think YouTube is still one of the best places to do that. And I would even encourage you, if you're considering YouTube, I would strongly make a push to try to do some live shows, some live streaming. And for me, anyway, that has been the biggest game changer in my career because it has drawn the people that I most want to work with into my circle. Because live streaming allows you to put your face on camera and not just a produced, polished video, but you get to hang out with people. Very similar to what we're doing right now. This is a live context. So when you get to have a conversation with people back and forth, you get to know them better and you get to build some trust. And that, again, that's how gigs happen. And that's how those relationships form, is in dialogue. It's in conversation. So that's why I tend to shy away from producing content. I used to, but there came a point where this feels very one-sided, very, very one-dimensional, where I'm just putting out stuff. But that's not what I want. I want conversations with people. And that's why I think live in particular, it draws people into a live chat and you can have discussions and go from there. So yes, short answer, yes, do it. But only if you're going to do it for the right reasons, which I think is to build community.
Where would you say is the best platform to publish like your music? Because we have like a lot of different places like SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. But what works best for you personally?
Yeah. I currently, if you're talking about distribution, which is the process of just getting your music out to be sold and to be listened to, I personally use what's called Sounddrop. It used to be called Louder, but now it's called Sounddrop. And the reason I even got there in the first place is the first music I ever started producing to try to make some money was actually video game music covers. So very similar to pop music covers, where I had certain video game tunes that I absolutely loved, and I used to play piano a lot. That was actually my first degree was in piano performance. And that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to play these things in my own style and then distribute them. And this was right about the time where CDs were no longer super popular. And so streaming was becoming all the rage, and iTunes and all that stuff. So it made sense for me to go with a company that specifically was really good about cover music. And to this day, if you ever want to do cover music, cover licensing, I still think Sounddrop is the best way to go. They've changed their pricing model a little bit, but essentially nowadays, I think you're only paying $1, which is insane. It's crazy how far we've come in technology, but you literally pay $1 to release a piece of music forever. That's crazy. It used to be so expensive to release music. And you used to have to license every single play of every single track, which is crazy, but that's just how streaming is nowadays. You literally pay $1 and then forevermore, every time you sell that $1 track, I think Sounddrop gets 30 cents, you get 70, you move on with your life. And that's for original music, but for cover music, the original artist gets their chunk as well. So it's more like 30 or 40%, but it's still very good. Anyway, probably the other competitor to Sounddrop is DistroKid. DistroKid has a little bit of a better sales model for the artist, but I think customer service side is a whole lot better on SoundDrop. And it's just, kind of pick the one that you prefer. But the reason that those are good is because when you have music that you want to release, you want to make sure you're covered legally and copyright wise. So by going through one of these companies, it's the easiest thing in the world. You literally upload your music just like YouTube, just like SoundCloud. But because it has to go through their database, they're adding the CCLI, which is the copyright number thing to it. And it's trackable. So what that means is if it shows up on YouTube, if it shows up in social media, whatever, you're protected. And it allows you to be able to track your analytics and all the things that you want as an artist, to have real numbers and to monetize it and all of that. So I could talk a lot about the details, the nerdy details, but basic question is just pick one of those. I would go with one of those two because they specialize in streaming and in selling, distributing the music. So it is actually freakishly easy now to do this. It used to be very complicated, but it can literally, you can upload an album in all of 10 minutes, which is a little scary, to be honest. It's too easy.
I just wanted to build on that question there, because we have students who do covers all the time.
There you go.
And we perform, and we just do it, we perform it, we sing, we play, and you will do things as well, man. Like you'll perform these covers, but they stop existing after the performance. What if you could actually continue doing covers, follow something like SoundDrop, and you could actually put your music out quite regularly?
I love that. I just need to have the tools for it.
Yeah.
I need to know.
Would these tools help you?
I'm sure, yeah.
I think that's a wonderful.
What advice would you have?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I don't know what the legal age requirements are where you are. Generally, at least over here in the States, you have to be 18 or older. So I don't want to recommend something that you can't actually do from a legal perspective. But in general, whether it's you or a guardian, whatever, getting that stuff, whether it's YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever, look into the minutia of it. I agree that'd be a great place to start building an audience around what you do. And I'll put this out there. I started uploading piano video game music covers. This was 10 years ago. It's hard to believe. About 10 years ago. And I still am making hundreds of dollars from these things every month, and I don't touch them. It's just every month. Because some of the tracks I did years ago, they picked up in popularity, and Spotify got a hold of them, and they got all over these playlists. And I just looked a couple of days ago, they're in the millions of views. It's crazy. And these are just little piano things I did 10 years ago. Has nothing to do with my career today, but it's a nice little paycheck. And that's what I mean by passive income and royalties. You do something once and you continue to get paid for it so long as people buy it or stream it. And music is one of those things that it's a numbers game. And just having a lot of music out there helps, for sure.
What is your process in composing music?
I think every composer is going to have a different answer to that. But my personal process, even my process changes depending on the project. But in general, I consider myself a melodic composer. So that means the melody, the singable, hummable part, the main theme, if you will, is the most important thing to me. So my answer to this largely depends on what I'm writing for and my deadline. So if I have a lot of time, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to move a lot slower, and I'm going to go back to my classical roots. I'm going to literally get out a piece of sheet music. I'm going to go to the piano, and I'm going to hand draw with pencil the main theme. And I'm going to work on it for days and really make sure it's well crafted and I love it. And then I'll take it to the computer, input it, start orchestrating or hire an orchestrator, and basically just take as long as I need to make this piece of music or this, suite or series of tunes, whatever, until, we hire the orchestra or live musicians or whatever. Every project's different. Every budget is different. So there is no one end-all process. So that's like if I have all the time in the world, but that is likely not the case. That is not always the case. In other situations, if I have to really rush and the deadline's in 2 days, I'm going to start on the computer and I'm going to literally write the whole thing probably in one sitting or in 2 sittings. And it's kind of a catch-22. It's a good thing that I have the skill set to do that quickly, but it doesn't always put out the best music. But that's also not the job. The job is not to write the best music in the world. It's to get it done in time to get paid. So that's kind of that is the challenge of doing art for a living, because we're working with a client, which means we're just trying to make that person happy. That's the job. It's to serve the project and to make the client happy. If you want to do your own art, just do it on the side, or make, music packs or whatever, release music on Spotify, etc. That's your own artistic music, but you can't exactly expect to make the same kind of money doing that versus serving a client, a well-established business that has the paycheck. So there's always that balance between making art and me. I'm going to do the best job I can, but sometimes there's just not enough time, and I don't get to write the beautiful main themes. I just have to kind of put something out. And I would deem that process holistic writing, which means I'm literally hands on the keyboard, in my session, and I'm just playing and then editing. And it's the fastest way to write music, but it's not always the highest quality. And so you have to kind of make some concessions sometimes, which is a bummer, but it's just the reality of writing commercial music. You don't always have a lot of time.
How necessary are social medias when you're in the music industry? Because you have you have your own website and you have your own Instagram and such forth. So are those really necessary? Because your website, I'm guessing, is just for passive income.
It's important to know what social media is for. We were talking earlier about YouTube. It's a community building platform. So what's the purpose of social media? I believe it's marketing. So what is marketing? Marketing is awareness. It's spreading your message, whatever it is, art, music, business, what have you. It's spreading your message and keeping your name or your brand at the forefront of your followers' minds. That's all marketing is. It's the same reason people pay millions of dollars to do Super Bowl ads, right? Or what have you, different commercials and billboards and newspapers and magazines. Like, why do people pay so much money? Because they want your attention. That's it. Because they know, Coca-Cola knows, Apple knows, Microsoft knows that as soon as you see that ad, you think about them, even if it's for a split second, because they don't think you're going to buy something right then. But when it comes Christmas time and you're looking at all the new laptops and all the new phones and all the new gadgets, oh yeah, Microsoft has that new thing, right? It's subliminal messaging. That's all marketing is. It is sharing your message a lot so that when it's time for someone to buy, they think of you first. That's all it is. So social media, when used as a marketing tool, is fantastic. When used as a sales tool, it's terrible. It is not a sales tool. I would argue that email is a sales tool. It's the same reason that JCPenney, I don't know what clothing stores you have there, but JCPenney and Gap and Old Navy or whatever, pick your favorite brand, whatever big clothing store, why do they spam you? Over here, it's Black Friday week, so this is literally the most retail shopped week of the year. So people lose their minds getting 50% off, 80% off if you buy one now, and I'm taking advantage of that because in my business, I sell products. I sell custom music, but I sell products. So yeah, I'm letting people know, buy this thing, it's 50% off for 2 days only, So what is that? That's sales. That's not marketing. That's sales. And the sales process it's talking to the people you've already marketed to and offering a really, really good deal that they can't refuse. And in doing so, you're landing the sale. So kind of back up a second. What's the purpose of social media? It's awareness, because if you're trying to sell something later, you can only sell to the people that already know who you are. Does that make sense? Question asker. You're off camera, so I can't ask.
There's too many cables connected. We can't turn around.
It's fine. Hope that makes sense. This is a topic I talk about a lot with really composers and musicians of all ages, because in our culture worldwide, a lot of people assume, oh, that person has a lot of followers on social media, so they must be successful. They must be good. But it has absolutely no bearing. I call that a vanity metric, because it literally has no bearing and doesn't mean anything. It just means a lot of people have visited that page or that post, but it really doesn't translate to dollars. It doesn't translate to influence or impact. I would much rather, and I think, Samuel, you and I talked about this, I would much rather sit here for an hour and have an amazing chat with 15 of you to actually have some relevance and impact and good conversation and good questions and thoughtful answers versus go talk to 10,000 people that don't care. What's the point? It's a number. Does that make sense? So a lot of young people get really bummed out that, oh, I only have 5 followers. Yeah, but think about that in a real life situation. Like right now, if this was a YouTube live, I would probably be bummed that there's only 15 people watching because I'm used to like 500 plus people watching live. I would be bummed. But then when I think about it, wait, this is a room of 15 people. That's amazing. When it's real people, real questions, real thoughts, real impact. So we got to think more human. And so social media just has this really weird atmosphere around it. Like people obsess about it. Like it's the most important thing in the world. But I'll tell you what, I spend less money and time and energy on social media than anything else in my business. It is like the cherry on top. It's just something I also do, and I think I do it pretty well, and I do have a marketing team, but that's not the main event. The main event is making good music, having good conversations, putting out great courses, putting out good books, having good, you know what I mean, selling good products. So don't obsess over social. It really doesn't matter that much in the end. And if you want to do social media, I would suggest be consistent in one little thing. Meaning, maybe just make one really good post once a week and be consistent. And what that's going to do, it's going to keep the people that you want to work with eventually at the top of your mind, at the top of their minds. And that way, when they're ready to hire viola, or they need some orchestration work, or they want some music for their game or whatever, podcast, they're thinking of you. And you don't have to spend much time doing it, but it does have an impact, and it is worth doing. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. I get really passionate about that subject.
There's a really good question that is, I think it came in a little bit late, but it was building on all of that. If you can share, what's a project you're working on now that you're really excited about?
Ooh, can I tell you a dirty secret? I'm not working right now. Dun, dun, dun. But you know what is super cool? I'm making a lot of money right now, even though I'm not working. That's the cool caveat to that. Because I have a lot of products that are selling right now, especially this week with Black Friday. But let me just step back for a second. Composers have seasons. Just like right now it is winter. Like it's cold. Or maybe it's fall still, but it's cold and it's miserable outside. But summer's coming, spring's coming, fall's coming. And just like I wear different clothes at those seasons, at least over here in the East Coast where we have 4 seasons, business has seasons. And every industry has its peak seasons and it has its valley seasons. So for me, as a composer, my biggest seasons are spring and fall. That's when I get the most work. I'm the busiest. But summer, because that's a huge vacation time over here, I don't have a lot of work. Winter, same thing. We are entering the holiday season where directors and developers, whatever, they don't want to work on projects, so we don't. And the projects I have worked on in the fall, all of the episodes and games and stuff are released or airing, if that makes sense. So I have seasons. So I have to appropriately gauge my time and my energy. So what that means is right now, just a little snapshot of my world. Last week, I just finished a game contract, and it will pick up again in January or February for another phase or milestone, you might call it, another like chunk of music for a game. And that will take up several months of my time. Tomorrow, I have a meeting with, I think the company's in Norway, which is super cool. I'm working with a lot of European companies, which is really fun. So I'm literally working all around the clock. Worked with Japan a couple months ago. Germany is the game contract that's in January, and then another indie game development studio in Los Angeles, California. So literally like every time zone. It's just funny. But anyway, so I'm literally in between. People say that when they don't have work. I'm in between projects, but I really am in between projects. Where I just finished one last week. I'm negotiating another contract tomorrow, which will likely take over the next 3 to 4 months. And then I have another one scheduled for another game in summer of next year. So this is the way the composing world works, is you're typically working on like 3 or 4 things for the entire year, and they're very spaced out, which is very cool. But as I was talking about, I think it was one of the first questions, I'm not getting paid by custom music right now. So I have to really focus on some other things until all of those contracts materialize. It's a very slow process of getting work. It happens, but it doesn't happen all the time. So it's important for me to spend my work hours investing in education products, and I have an online community that I work with every day, and private coaching students, and whatever. Like I have a lot of things, but they all ebb and flow in seasons, and that is literally what it means to be a musician in 2022. It's all about having multiple little jobs. And anyone that tells you otherwise, they're either a superstar that does one thing and that's it, and they made it, they're the 1%, or they haven't done it, or they haven't done it long enough to understand that there's a rhythm and there's an ebb and flow. You get a lot of work and then you get no work. You get a lot of work and then no work. So you've got to find something or multiple little somethings that are kind of resistant to failed economies. They're resistant to war. They're resistant to disease. Come on, we've encountered all 3 of those things. It sounds like a joke, but we've encountered disease, we've encountered war globally, and economies crashing. And all 3 of those things can crush your business. And so it's nice to have multiple streams of income to rely on. So I have 5 kids, by the way. So it's expensive to live my life with my big family. So it's important for me. I can't go a month without income. So it's very important that something's happening at all times. Multiple irons in the fire, so to speak.
How did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
For me, I know I am the anomaly. This is not the normal answer, but I did know from a very young age, when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, I knew that I wanted to do music. I didn't know what with music. I knew I wanted to do music for the rest of my life. Now, the funny thing is, everybody's journey is just a giant zigzag line. There's nobody, I don't know anybody who's had any level of success that had a straight line, a meteoric rise to fame and success. It doesn't happen. You got to fight for it. Everyone I know has had just ups and downs, and they zigzag all the way until they finally get where they want to be. But for me, I started off I loved piano. I loved playing classical music. I loved playing by ear, and that was the gift I was born with, I can hear music and replay it. And that's why playing cover music made a whole lot of sense, because I'd pick out my favorite video game tunes or film songs, whatever, and I just loved playing them on the piano. And then once I got a little bit more mature and understood more of how to make music, I started diving into the technology side of things and learning software and sample instruments and plugins and mixing. And I chased where my curiosity led me. And it ended up in a school setting. I ended up playing in orchestras and singing in choirs and playing in percussion ensembles and playing a lot of music with a lot of people, playing in bands, mixing bands. And it just, by getting a lot of experience in a lot of things and just kind of chasing wherever I was interested in, it just it found its place. And I think that there's a bad piece of advice floating around in the ether that you're supposed to, like when you're in school as a student, you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do for the rest of your life. That there's a dream job that you should be shooting for. And if once you get that, you'll be happy. I don't believe that. I think we as people are always growing. We're always changing. That's what it means to be human. We are always changing. And as Samuel was saying, once you get married, for example, your entire life changes and all of your decisions are now to be reflected with your spouse. Similarly, if you have kids, that changes everything. And that limits some of your things that you can do, but it also increases some things that you can do. And you start to think more about location, where you are, where the best schools are, where are you close to a grocery store? Like the basic things of life that you wouldn't think about when you're single. And every stage of your life, you have to make decisions filtered through those larger decisions. And your career is no different. There have been periods of time where I've worked from home, other times where I've worked away in a studio, sometimes where, with small kids, I didn't get any sleep throughout the night. And so I didn't work the next day. And there's just so many things that change that none of us can predict. But part of being open is all of you have expressed interest in some way with music, which is awesome. So my biggest encouragement for you is to work hard at it, get really good at it. So that way you have a lot of options later when it really is time to make some decisions. And I'd also say if you are curious about an aspect of music, go chase it and go see what it's like, because you'll never know unless you try. And for me, I've tried a lot of things in the music space, but once I tried certain things, for example, sound design is something I'm not very good at and I've explored with. And the more I explore, the more I don't like it. And it's just, it has instantly let me know that no, that's not a career path for me. Let's really stick to music and get really good at music. And it allows me to hire out the other parts that I just know I don't want to do. Because life is too short to do things you don't want to do. And we all have to do things we don't want to do. But as far as a career goes, you better love your career. That's all I got to say.
We're laughing sort of ironically, internally, things we don't want to do. We're thinking school. But yeah.
I understand.
But it's kind of, yeah.
So when you are making music for video games, what do the companies usually provide you with? Do they give you a demo or inspiration, or are you kind of in the dark?
Ooh, fantastic. I've seen everything. I've seen the companies who expect you to just make a masterpiece out of nothing, which is not possible. And then I've seen others that give you way too much information. So I think it's important as the composer to have some clear expectations right from the beginning. And I've just learned from experience that there's a few things that I need to be successful. And that is, I need some kind of description of what we're doing. If possible, some gameplay, or at least some gameplay clips, something to visually see is huge. And if not that, at least some artwork, a basic description. And usually all that can come out in one little conversation. If you just talk for 15 minutes, you can get a lot of information. But the musical side that really matters is I either need to know what is this game developer's favorite type of music? What do they really love? And you can start to understand a whole lot more about that person and their direction and what they're going to approve versus disapprove just by, hey, you know what? I really like Daft Punk. I really like the Beatles. I really like John Williams. I really like Hans Zimmer. Interesting. Okay, and that it's going to tell me 1,000 things not to try. Does that make sense? Mm. It's going to limit the palette. Even just a quick little conversation, it eliminates all the wrong ways to spend my time. Now, of course, in a perfect scenario, I would ask for some reference tracks. Now, this is actually true for film, TV, video games, everything. I ask for, I'm telling you, in an ideal situation, is I would ask for 3 pieces of music. Especially when we're just starting for the very first time working together, that's a really good number to ask for 3 reference tracks. More than 3 is too much. Less than 3 is not enough. But when you ask for 3, it allows me as a composer to listen to 3 different pieces of music and then try to find what do they all have in common. And usually it's a tempo, or it's an instrument, or it's a style. And if all 3 are radically different, then we have to have another conversation. I'm not going to write music because it'd just be pointless. And so much of this is a dance between 2 different collaborators, 2 creatives, and we're trying to figure out what am I hearing that is common in all of these things. So you're basically looking for the average between reference tracks, and that always reduces the number of revisions significantly. And every time I've ever just gone and just started writing music right off the bat, it's always been a complete disaster. And those are the tracks that end up taking 10, 15, 20 tries because I keep trying, thinking, oh, but this is perfect. It looks exactly like this, sounds like what I'm seeing. But that's just my opinion. And then when I bring it to the game developers, or in some cases, multiple game developers, which is another story when you have a lot of opinions in the pool, always try to limit it to 3 people, by the way. If there's more than 3 people in the room, you will never get anything approved, ever. There has to be a decision maker because that's the person who has the vision for the whole project. I learned that the hard way with my last project. It was about 7 or 8 people in the room because they're all working on the game. It's a team of 12. And about 8 people were giving their opinions. I don't need the programmer's opinion. I don't want the artist's opinion. No. I want the lead developer's opinion because they're the one, this is their vision. Because they were literally saying opposite things. I hate this element. I love this element. And I'm turning them against each other just because I wrote a piece of music. So you got to be careful. Limit the number of people in the room. But yeah, in general, it's reference tracks are huge. I have to work from something. I think I'm at the point now that I will never ever write music again, just in the void, in a black hole, because you'll never actually solve any problems. That makes sense? Oh, I'll give a great analogy. I just thought of this. I've heard this before. Imagine you're a painter and someone hires you to come paint their house, or a room in the house. Okay, here's $1,000. Good luck. Okay, what color do you need? Right, what are the questions you're going to ask? What color, what pattern, what wall, how much? If you don't know those basic details, and I just guess purple, what are you doing? I wanted black. How was I supposed to know? But by simply asking, hey, can you show me a few pictures of some walls that you like that maybe I can get some inspiration from? Art is that way. You have to have some kind of visual reference, or in the case of music, a musical reference. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark and you will be wrong every time.
What happens if, you look at the gameplay and the developer is asking for a sound that you aren't familiar with? For example, it could be a different genre or a different style. How would you then approach composing for that if you aren't familiar with the style that is wanted?
Well, one of the best parts of working in games is every project is different and unique. And that's actually one of the main draws for me, is I'm always pushing myself to learn new things. If I didn't want that, I would probably stay in the film lane because it's almost all the same type of music. It's very orchestral with some slight electronic. There's a very specific film Hollywood sound. That's not my favorite thing. I like the eclecticism of today. For this project, I'm going to combine rock with orchestral, with EDM, with whatever, and I'm going to throw in a didgeridoo just for the heck of it, right? You get these weird combos of sounds. So that is very similar to the last conversation, that I would have some honest dialogue that, hey, I know that you want some big band for this. I've never done this before, but just be honest. I've never done this before. So either let's get some reference tracks. Let me try a demo, and let's just try what I'm feeling based on your feedback and everything, and either move forward, or if it's just something I know I don't have a shot because it's just outside of my realm, then yeah, I'm going to refer a friend, because neither of us needs to be in a situation where I don't need to be writing inauthentically, if that makes sense. Please don't ask me to produce a pop record. I'll do an awful job. It's just not my style. I don't like it. I don't want to, I'm going to produce things the way that I listen to them. What do I listen to naturally? It's probably what I'm going to be the best at producing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I think if it's something that I know is a good fit and it's outside my comfort zone, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to go listen to a lot of music in that style. Just yesterday, so I have this meeting tomorrow with a game developer, and they put a bunch of bands on the list. It was actually a lot of Swedish. Get this, some of them were French electronic bands and artists, so Daft Punk level kind of stuff, very electronic. And then the other half of the list were Swedish folk, like not heavy rock, but like a lot of hurdy-gurdies and Swedish instruments in like a cinematic style. So two things that have no business being in the same playlist. And knowing that this is outside my comfort zone, I know I can do it because it's still cinematic and it still feels like a good project. But knowing that it's outside my comfort zone, all day yesterday, I spent like 8 hours just listening to all these bands and artists and just like getting it into my brain so that I can have an intelligent conversation tomorrow with the team. Because they're going to start making references to these different groups that I've never heard of, but now I have. And now I have, okay, and now that I've listened to like 10 different albums and things, and now I can hear the through line. Oh, they like drones. Oh, they like slow tempo. Oh, they like strings in the background. Oh, you get what I'm saying? Now that I've listened to all these different things, I now understand where they're coming from because I've seen the pictures of the paintings, so to speak. And now I understand. So there's a research involved at the beginning of any new project. And that's just kind of due diligence to have an intelligent conversation with a project creator.
A lot of people say that going to university for such like creative things is not as useful as if you just went into the industry and just started. So would you recommend like going to university for such a specific creative thing?
I think both are valuable. I think it has a lot to do with where you are at in your life. Meaning, if you are coming straight out of school and considering college to increase your skills, increase your connections, that is the best time of your life to do school. Versus me in my 30s with 5 kids, married, and very much involved in a career with multiple businesses, going to school would be stupid. It would make no sense. It would be so costly and so sacrificial to the point where it would make no sense. So you see how you have to weigh where you're at. And then, of course, you have to weigh the cost of it, whether it's time, money, energy, whatever. But typically, if you're 18 years old, 20 years old, whatever, you're younger, you don't have a family to take care of, you don't have big bills to pay, that is the time to go because you're going to learn skill sets and you're going to meet people that are going to further your career so much faster than just jumping into the career field with no experience and with no skill sets and no connections. It's possible. It's very doable. But I would always push people towards getting more education so long as it's not this big, crazy sacrifice that makes no sense for your life. So it's a highly individual thing. And I don't think there's a blanket statement that could say it's good for everybody or it's terrible for everybody. No. I certainly am where I am because of skill sets that I picked up and challenges that I faced along the way that really pushed me out of my comfort zone and connections I was able to make, becoming an intern for different composers, which kind of snowballed into some remote work, which snowballed into wanting to teach. Like, my path is a giant zigzag like anybody else's, and it's hard to pinpoint the moments of was school worth it or not. I think it was worth it. But ultimately, I'll tell you what I wish I had done differently is I probably would have benefited to take a year off between my undergrad and my graduate, just for the sake of having some life experience outside the school, because I'd done my school my entire life, maybe to get some work experience, maybe to work with a composer, something that allowed me to like breathe for a second before plowing forward into a really expensive and intense graduate degree. That's just me. But again, that's not right for everybody. So I think it's worth considering. And if you're just applying and looking at options, I think it's worth looking at. That way you have some real options in front of you, and you should compare and contrast like you should any major life decision.
So I had a question regarding where or how do you find these opportunities to get on such large, amazing projects?
Well, yeah, there's no secret to it. There is no shortcut. You build a career by saying yes to a lot of things that build into larger things. A lot of my earlier projects were very small indie games or small films or small podcast shows, whatever. And I made friendships with these people that then they moved on 5 years later to make something a little bit more prestigious. And then it started to win some awards, and then it snowpiles into something else. And this is why careers are careers. They're not like 5-year stints. Like people who are successful in industry, these are the people who've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. They have but if you go back to any of these successful people, composers or otherwise, go back to their first 10 gigs. They're no-name gigs. They're just little short films, little game projects, student projects, right? Everyone starts there. And I don't believe there is such a thing as an overnight success. So sometimes we all of a sudden see somebody in their prime. Whoa, they scored this huge movie. Oh, they did this big video game. But then if you trace back 20 years ago, they were making stuff just like all of us, just the no-name stuff. It takes some time, and it's really momentum, I think, is, if there's one word for, I think, your entire class to maybe dwell on a little bit, is momentum, which is how does anything significant happen in this world? It's never just one isolated event. It's always consistency over time. It's a snowball. It starts small, then bigger, 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 and then all of a sudden it's this huge thing that starts making serious impact.
Can I ask, where are you planning on going?
Ooh.
Like you told us where you come from. You told us where you are, but like, yeah, because I mean, you were younger, you wanted to be somewhere, and clearly you had some idea in your head to get yourself here. But from here, where do you want to go?
I love that question so much, because that encapsulates what it means to be human, meaning we all have a past that we can learn from that got us where we are. We need to be very focused on our present to do the best we can with what we have and to be thankful for what we have, but we should always be vision casting for the future. So where do I go from here? I strongly believe that the most successful people in the world are lifelong learners. They're always learning, always growing, always pushing themselves to make a greater impact. And not that success is the goal necessarily. Oh, I need to do another, like an A-list project. That's not the goal. To me, it's the legacy piece, meaning pouring into the next generation, growing up more people to grow a larger team for the impact. And right now, the big deal in my life right now is growing a physical team here in the studio. Because right now it's me, an executive assistant, and I have a marketing team. And that's 4 people. That's not a lot of people. But where I want to go is I want to grow into about 10 people where I can work on, as a team, multiple projects at the same time across multiple fields and to grow from there. But from an impact perspective, it's always mattered to me to pour into the next generation and to grow up leaders and to help show the path, even though it's a zigzag line, to show the path and to encourage others to grow. But it's never been based around getting a bigger profile project. Because to me, we live in a day and age where sometimes it's more satisfying to work on a really cool indie project than some big Hollywood thing with 1,000 opinions and red tape. And could that be cool? Yeah. But I don't know. I'm at a place right now where I'm very content. I call it holy discontentment. It's where I am content where I am and where I'm grateful for where I've come from and where I am, but I still have big goals and making big strides to grow, to do more and to be better,
There is no kind of end. It's just you keep growing. Yeah, you keep growing by yourself. And by yourself, I mean your company, your market, your mind as well.
Absolutely. I think as long as we're breathing, there is no finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think of one of the world's greatest composers of all time, John Williams. right? We all know his name from Star Wars, E.T., Jurassic Park, whatever. He, I don't even know if he's currently writing anything right now, but he's in his late 80s, and he's still making masterful works because he loves it. And I didn't get into this career to make money. I got into this career to
enjoy it,
to do what I love, and to have some impact on the world. And I found a way to monetize it along the way, and now I'm teaching others to do the same. But ultimately, I think we are at our best when we're like, we put good into the world when we are doing what we love. And I don't know if there's any other way of putting good into the world. Because if you're miserable at your day job, like, what are you doing? I mean, and there's times and there's places, I've done plenty of jobs I didn't love, but it was always a means to an end. It was the way to facilitate and to grow into where I am now, as a business owner, as the autonomy. And we didn't even talk about this at all today, but maybe if you guys check out the book, Family First Composer, it's in that packet, you'll get my number one focus is family. It always has been. And I have sacrificed a lot of career success in place of family, and because it matters more to me. I've said no to a lot of things, and I've made a lot of concessions, and I spent several years working from home for the purpose of being able to take care of kids, alongside my wife. And part of our story is foster care and taking care of kids who don't have parents, and this whole thing. And that's a big heart for us, and it's a big mission. And that is much larger than being a composer, like writing music for entertainment. Like that's not interesting to me. I think it just matters to grow as a person and to make impact as a person first. I don't ever want to be someone who gets so caught up in work and career that I can't see the bigger picture and the world at large and my family and community. I like to start from the top and filter down. Let's put it that way.
Do you ever like play the video games that you made the music for, or do you kind of just like compose it and then like never revisit it again?
Well, I am a gamer at heart. I play video games all the time. That's why I chose this career, because I'm obsessed with games, and I get to play games as part of my job. So heck yeah. In fact, it's one of the most rewarding feelings in the world. I would even say it's more rewarding than watching a movie with my music in it, or watching a TV show with my music in it, or a podcast, right? There's something about a game, because it's on loop and you're listening to it constantly for hours and hours and hours. Like, I wrote that. That's so cool. I'll pick on one game, for example, Monster Sanctuary, which I worked on in 2020 and 2021, I think. Yeah. Because they had a DLC, which added a lot of music. I played that game, I think, 4 times unnecessarily, because I just love it so much. And I wanted to play it on all the different consoles just to say I did. Because here's the thing. The first time I played it, they were still working on the game. And so I was writing music, and then they would change some parts of the game. And what happened was I was basically playing it for work, because I needed to understand the levels and the concepts, but I wasn't really enjoying it so much because I was so focused on the craft. And so by the time I finished all the music, the game finally released, and so I wanted to play it in its final form. But because this game they've been updating it for like all of 2 years, every time I've played it, they've added all these new updates, which is so cool. And I think it's a lot of fun when you're working, and there was a very small team, so they listened to their audience a lot. And so, what's that? Yeah.
Yeah, they're all accessing their Steam accounts right now to actually.
Oh, cool. Yeah, if you like Pokemon or any kind of Metroidvania game, it combines those. It is so much fun. It's 2 of my favorite types of series. And it's a platformer. So it's this really fun cross genre. It's a lot of fun. So go play it. Enjoy. But yes, I definitely play. But that's not true of all game composers, I'm finding. I think it's strange to me. It's like I would never be a film composer and not watch movies. I don't understand. Does not compute. It's like, if you're going to choose a career, go all in. Enjoy it. Be all in. It's the same thing. The reason I've mostly worked on games in recent years, and that's probably where I'm headed for the future. What do I do in my free time? I play video games. I don't really watch TV and watch movies, so it doesn't make any sense for me to work on that type of media because I'm not invested. But when I'm talking to game developers, they're like, hey, did you play the latest this? Yeah, I loved it. Hey, did you hear this soundtrack from this? Absolutely. Because I'm playing like 10, 15 games a year, but that makes sense because I'm in that industry. So there you go.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you guys so much. It was a lot of fun.